All right, welcome into another edition of Sit Start Polls Live. I'm Dave Paulzine alongside my brother Eric Paulzine. Eric, good first week of DFS preseason week one.
Talk about killing it. I mean, that's a way to start off your first podcast, talk about DFS preseason, and we just killed it. I mean, Jaguars, Patriots, we killed that one. That was easily our best call.
Yeah, for sure. We hit on a lot of value there. You talked about the quarterback position for New England. They dominated. We talked about the tight end for New England. Hollister, big game, over 100 yards.
My boy D.D. Westbrook and then Cole both scored touchdowns.
I think my favorite pick, though, was Mr. Salsa.
Oh,
Victor Cruz.
3 catches, 9 yards, and a TD. That was a nice one.
So we hit on a lot of stuff last week, so hopefully you were able to use some of our players to help you cash out and win some money as well. I know I did. I hit on a couple games, led by my safe play of the week, Brett Hundley. We'll get into that a little bit more later on in the podcast, but I hit on a couple contests, so it was a good start.
It was a great start. Building that bankroll for week one.
So this week, DraftKings coming out with a couple different games and a couple different contests that they haven't done before.
Yeah.
They came out with the $1 billion challenge, which basically you have to have a perfect lineup to win the $1 billion.
According to salary. So the best possible lineup, I guess. So pretty much no one's going to win it.
No.
But you're going to have fun doing it. And
I mean, it's something at least to kind of give you a feel for putting a lineup out together. You know, it's a free shot. Might as well throw some crazy things at the wall, see what sticks.
Exactly, and I wonder if there's like a payout for like top 10 or like if you win a ticket or something. So either way, it might still be worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm just curious. I also read too that since it's not a paid contest, everyone in all 50 states can play this contest. Yeah. So if you're in a state that doesn't allow you to play on DraftKings, you can enter this contest and win $1 billion if you happen to get the right combination of players. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Once again, that's another reason why I prefer DraftKings over FanDuel. They just have that creativity in them to think of something like that.
When week one comes around, but definitely take a look at that contest. It looks to be pretty interesting. It's insured by some of the top insurance companies in the world, so they're hoping no one wins. I can guarantee you that. The other thing that DraftKings introduced this week was their Pick'em. That's what they're calling it. It's basically a tiered system. So
no salaries.
No salaries. It's just kind of you have your choice in tier one of looks like 2, 4, 6, 8 different quarterbacks. In tier 2, you've kind of got the same thing.
They mix it up with like running backs and receivers and all the different tiers, so it'll be an interesting one.
It's kind of interesting. I'm trying to get the screen to go, but it's not working that good for me. The mouse trick's not working.
Yeah, I can already tell you a little strategy to use.
Okay, let's hear the initial strategy. This just came down a couple hours ago, so let's kind of talk it through a little bit.
So they might not allow you to stack it too much. I'm not sure. Just like stacking players, but the way obviously you'd want to do it is compare the salaries to the values of the tiers. And maybe you could use that
maybe you could find some value in the tiers. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yep. So like the top list of quarterback might be tiered in with a guy that's only $7K. You know.
So it looks like they're trying to. It's definitely different because there's going to be guys that are not on these tiered lists that are going to be in your normal DFS contest, but these are more of the big name guys.
And these people are in these tiered because people are seeing them more and they're playing them more. Just a little side thought there for ownership plays.
And these tiers, it kind of almost looks like a normal fantasy football lineup. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got your quarterbacks, but then when you're like doing a draft, like. If you look at Tier 3, it's LaShawn McCoy, then Julio Jones, A.J. Green, then Le'Veon Bell. So, I mean, it's almost like a top 10 in a normal draft. Yeah. So, it's kind of weird.
This will be fun to see how it goes.
So, they're just bringing that out, too. I think that is for Week 1 as well. I don't think you can play yet for preseason. I think that's something that rolls out in Week 1.
There's about 600 hours left on that one.
Yes, there's some time. You can play around with it, fill out some lineups. No free contest for that so far. Entry fee, the lowest entry fee is $5. Currently, they've got 4 different games going on for it, but I would expect as we get closer to kick off in week 1 that there'll be more of those games.
Maybe they'll even do a test run next week for preseason week 3.
So let's move away from the crystal ball and talking about the future, and let's kind of get into tomorrow's games, the Thursday night games. It's a 3-game slate. You've got Baltimore, Miami. You've got Buffalo and Philadelphia, and you've got Tampa Bay and Jacksonville. So, Eric, why don't we go ahead and start with Baltimore versus Miami and kind of run down your thoughts on the Ravens and the Dolphins?
Yeah. So if you were watching the Baltimore game, you saw Tyquan Mizzle do pretty well. He had, 39 rushing yards? He had 51 rushing yards on 15 carries. But if you also looked at their opponents, the Miami Dolphins, how much they gave up in their previous game, it was 113 yards total. And so that kind of makes me want to go with Mizzle here because you got to assume that he's going to get you probably about the same output as 5 points probably.
Well, last year you talked about how the Baltimore Ravens led everyone in preseason rushing attempts with 31.5 a game. They said, hold my beer and rush for 39 attempts in preseason week 1. So Baltimore likes to run, and if Mizzle's one of those guys that's getting the touches, there's definitely going to be some value in there. He touched the ball 15 times.
And that's what you want to look for is touches or targets. And so this is definitely a guy to have in your lineups or at least some exposure to. Another one you could do is Terrence West. He looked good.
Yeah, and he's competing for a job.
He is, and
he wants the starting role, and that's available in Baltimore. So, Terrence West might be a play. And I also like those first team. I like sprinkling in some of those first team guys too, because
you gotta do that.
If the first team offense goes down and has a good drive, there's not a lot of touchdowns in preseason. So if you can get a touchdown out of your guys, that's what you're looking for. Key. Terrence West might be a guy that comes in on the doorstep with Baltimore trying to work on their goal line offense. Yep. He might be a guy that, even if he's not in the field to get him down there, he might be the guy that punches them in.
Exactly, and they kind of want to see if he can still do that to be the goal line back for them. Side note on Terrence West, he's kind of I don't know if you want to say sleeper pick, but he's a value pick right now. So he's going pretty late, and later in drafts than he should.
Yeah, in standard drafts, not just DFS.
Yep.
What about in the passing game for Baltimore? They've got, Joe Flacco as the quarterback, Ryan Mallett the backup, some other guys mixed well, but those guys are sorry.
So butcher this name. Quincy Adiba.
Bajoicho. I don't know, man. I don't know how you pronounce that. You'll find it. Look for Quincy. Look for Quincy in the DraftKings lineup. I don't think Baltimore probably has too many of Quincy.
But so if you do want to play receiver for them, he did see the most targets. And he's a guy that the Ravens have liked in training camp so far. So he could be a guy that you would target in the passing game. It's kind of want to come back and stack a receiver with the Miami Dolphins players.
You gotta love preseason names, man.
I'm sorry I butchered that. There's no way I. A little bit of Matt Moore, maybe.
A little bit of Matt Moore.
You could sprinkle him in there. Just a little bit. Sprinkle him in a little bit. The person I like the most for Miami Dolphins is Marquise Gray. He saw 4 targets, but he had 5 DK points, which for a tight end, that's pretty good. For a tight end not named Rico Gallers, that's pretty good. And then just kind of a side talking point, the Miami Dolphins defense, it was kind of a solid unit, especially in the special teams. They created a bunch of turnovers. A little side note is Kenyon Drake, not Cameron Drake, or Cameron Wake, I guess. But Kenyon Drake, he's out. He's out with a concussion, and Jay Ajayi actually just got cleared from a concussion. So you have to kind of see if those guys are going to be playing. If not, someone like Damian Williams will probably have to get a couple more touches in there, so he'd be a guy to target. But that's news you got to wait for.
And I'm curious to see if Jay Cutler does play. He seemed to have an instant rapport with Jakeem Grant, a guy we talked about a little bit last week. Now, he didn't perform spectacularly last week, only had 2 catches for 8 yards. But he's a guy that's going to be returning kicks, which we know we love, i.e. Trevor Davis last week getting the punt return. So that was a nice play for us. But, guys in special teams that are trying to get jobs in the punt return game, that's who I like in DFS because they can always hit a big one. Mm-hmm. So even if they only have 2 catches for 8 yards, if they can get a punt return for a touchdown, you're set. And but Cutler seemed to have a lot of chemistry with him early on. That first day that he came onto the scene, so maybe that's a guy that Cutler can use to stretch the field. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them.
And my boy Levante Carew, actually, he's kind of got a little bit of a hamstring injury, so he caught a touchdown last week. But he might be out with a hamstring injury. So look at that, and that would make me want to actually play the guy that scored a long touchdown, Stringfellow. So he'd be an option, but Jakeem Grant is my favorite receiver on this team.
So why don't we jump to an AFC East rival, the Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills. They take on the Philadelphia Eagles in a Week 2 matchup.
And what did you think about that trade that they made? I know we didn't get to talk about that in the air.
I mean, you know how high I am on Sammy Watkins.
You're not.
I'm not. So I don't know. It kind of is what it is. I mean, they got Jordan Matthews coming back their way, right? And I love Jordan Matthews. Played at Vanderbilt. Yeah. He's had some pretty good seasons with the Eagles. Everyone's saying like, if the Bills gave up Sammy Watkins, it's terrible for Tyrod Taylor. But I like Jordan Matthews. I don't think there's much of a downgrade, if there's any at all, at least in my opinion.
And that'll be the storyline to watch kind of in these preseason games, the series that Tyrod Taylor is playing, how he will respond without Sammy Watkins. The quarterback that I want to play for this team is going to be Nathan Peterman. He threw the ball 25 times. So for a guy that threw the ball 25 times, he had 1 TD and 100 yards passing, so that's pretty good. He also is a guy he got you 2 points running the ball, so that's pretty good. So
yeah, those don't seem like big numbers if you don't play a lot of preseason DFS, but that's a really solid showing for a quarterback in DFS. I'm not sure what he point totaled in DraftKings, but I mean, it definitely was in the 6, 7, 7 to 15. And anywhere, if you can get 7 points from your quarterback, kind of just looking at some of the lineups that won big cash, that's not bad. I mean, you have a nice floor there if you can get to that mark.
Yep. The running back that I want to target the most, he's the guy that looked the best in the game. Well, actually, all the running backs for the Bills kind of look pretty good. Mike Tolbert and Jonathan Williams, but Jonathan Williams is going to be the guy that I want to target the most. He just looked really good, and it seemed like they were actually blocking pretty well. So he's the guy I'm going to target if I'm choosing a running back. He's kind of higher on my list, actually, because you think Shady's not going to play too much.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that they're going to risk Shady and
he's
too many
and
too many preseason carries. They need him going forward. If that offense has any chance of doing anything this year, they need him on the field.
Yep.
On the other side of the field, Philadelphia lost to Green Bay last week, but they did show some things. Yeah. Despite getting kind of blown out of Lambeau Field. And
so this first player I'm going to mention. He honestly could be in line for a suspension or something. He kind of had, I don't know if it was a dirty hit, but it seemed like a hit that the NFL's trying to get away from. So just kind of watch out. His name is Bryce Treggs. He saw 8 targets, had 7 catches, and 94 yards. So he did really well. But once again, you kind of just want to check and see the stats on him. I don't think he will get any suspended.
You would have thought that it probably would have come down already. I mean, it is Wednesday,
and it didn't get played on the
tomorrow.
Play.
So
yeah. Greg Ward Jr. is a guy who actually saw 11 targets and actually saw the most snaps as a receiver. He's a former quarterback, so they're kind of trying to see what they got in him. So he's a guy you can target.
Yeah, he made a couple grabs against Green Bay, and when he had the ball, he looked like he could do something with it. So, I mean, good catch and run, maybe a PPR guy. It's just a guy trying to make the roster, so we'll see if he could be a sleeper pick for you in preseason Week 2.
And I know Matt McGloin, he threw the ball a lot. He wasn't that effective somehow against the Packers D-backs, but he's a guy you could see maybe having in your lineups if you want to stack him. Guy you can stack him with as well is Matt Collins.
Yeah, don't forget about Matt Collins. He scored against Green Bay's number 1 defense.
Number 1 defense. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
their actual number 1 defense.
Yeah, well, he scored with the starters. Philadelphia, I think. Did they go up in that game?
Yeah, and he had 65 yards as well.
Right.
So he looked good.
He played throughout most of the first half. He might have even got in the third quarter. He definitely logged quite a bit of time. He was out there. I was surprised that he was the guy who caught the first touchdown. When I heard his name later in the half, I was surprised he was still out there.
That kind of makes you think, hey, maybe this is why they traded away Jordan Matthews.
Could be. I mean, so maybe that's a guy you look at, too, if you want to go against the Bills' pass defense.
A little pat on my back. I brought up Corey Clement last week. He was their top scoring running back.
He looked good. I'm not going to make you put the helmet on.
Thank you. He just a little side note on him. He looked really good on passing down plays, blocking.
And that was one of the areas you were really targeting in that game, that Green Bay-Philadelphia game. You really wanted to see how the Eagles would block with Clement and Pumphrey to see who would really step into that third down role.
Yep,
right. And
exactly.
it kind of looks like Clement might have came to the forefront in that area.
Mm-hmm. So he's kind of a guy you want to see one more week, and then maybe week 4 you can play him. So just a little thing to remember.
All right, let's jump down to Tampa Bay and Jacksonville. Jaguars showed a lot. Tampa Bay showed a little, but we'll see what happens in week 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you watched the game, you saw Jameis Winston target Mike Evans. He saw 7 targets, actually, and he didn't play too much. 7 targets, 4 catches, 78 yards. That's a pretty good stat line for a starter.
Especially in preseason.
You
got to quantify everything with the preseason, because I think a lot of people get caught up in he only scored 7 points. That's nothing. That's not a bad score in preseason. A lot of people were throwing out donuts, a lot of 1s, a lot of 2s in their lineups. If you can get guys across the board that put up 7, you're going to cash.
Yep. And, I mean, you got to think that was just the first game. You got to think in the second game he's going to get a little bit more work as well. So he's a guy you can target maybe this week, and he's a starter that might pay off dividends. Maybe you could go with quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. He didn't look that good throwing the ball, but he did have a rushing TD. So, I mean, he always has kind of had that.
He's got that Fitz magic, man.
He does. He actually does, though. He's not good, but he has that Fitz magic. So, I mean, he's a guy I could play. I could see him throwing the ball about 20 times.
And they were also going against a pretty good defense in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I mean, typically that's a good pass defense. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he completed 6 of 13, 45 yards, 1 pick. He wasn't great. I guess he wasn't horrible, but
he's a former starting quarterback going against second and third starters. So,
and the more reps he gets in the offense, obviously, the more comfortable he'll feel. Maybe towards the end of training camp here, maybe in week 2 it kicks it off. But he should get more comfortable in the offense and with the receivers going forward. So
and if you want to stack one more receiver with him, Freddie Martino, he's kind of a guy that he's a pass catcher. So he's probably not going to make a big play for you, but he would have a little nice floor for you.
Yeah, and he's definitely around. I mean, he definitely gets targets when he's in there. He's a guy that he always seems to be in the box score for Tampa. If you watch a Tampa Bay game, you hear his name. You're not sure who he is, but he's just always around, and the name just kind of stays with you.
Yeah, so he's going to have a floor. He's not going to get you a 0 most likely.
So looking on the other side of the ball, Jacksonville, they were in one of the highest scoring games. If you had a Jacksonville-New England stack, you probably made quite a bit of money.
That was our favorite game last week, too, for that slate, so that was nice.
We didn't hit on the +5 for Jacksonville.
Yeah.
But we did hit on the +5 for Jacksonville. It was the Green Bay game that we didn't hit on, but we did hit on the +5
so we were
for
on
Jacksonville.
That one. Yeah.
That was our game, yeah.
Yeah. So if you were watching the game and you've been following the reports, Leonard Fournette looked really good.
Oh, yeah.
But
did you hear what he said?
No, what did he say?
He said, the NFL game is a lot slower than I thought it was going to be. Everyone told me that it was going to be this big, fast, different thing, but he said it's slower than the SEC.
And that's what you want to hear, I guess. SEC does recruit speed.
I don't know, man. He didn't log that many yards to be running his mouth like that.
He fell forward, though.
Sure. Well, yeah. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. But, I mean, I just thought that was a pretty ballsy comment from a guy after playing 10 snaps in a preseason opener.
But he looked good, and his draft stock shouldn't rise too much because he's out this week. So that makes me kind of want to go towards running back Corey Grant, who used my big play that paid off. Well, this whole team did. He had 8 carries, 120 yards, and a score. And he just looks good this preseason.
I don't know, man. We got to get you either a double fist with water.
Dude, my voice, middle of the podcast just goes.
We're not even in the middle of the podcast. We're in the first quarter, man.
I made the mistake of having sunflower seeds this morning.
We're gonna have to condition you a little bit better with the voice training, I think.
We
got to have you going in the second half here.
Some voice training. I'm sorry. I apologize.
But Jacksonville, you said you like Corey Grant. Had a lot of carries, a lot of touches. Anybody in the wide receiver core that you like?
So D.D. Westbrook again and Kellen Cole, they both played well and they both paid off. They both scored long touchdowns. And there are people that can do that again for you. So if you're playing this game, you want to stack those two because most likely one of them are going to score a long touchdown.
Yeah, and Jacksonville, despite having all their running backs, they like to throw the football. Bortles played a couple series.
Well, that's like I was saying. Like, they're not that good of a team to be ahead to run the ball all the time. So someone like Grant, who's a guy that can catch the ball at the backfield, is going to play a little bit more because they're going to be down more.
So just kind of strategy for this 3-game set on Thursday. How do you play this? Are you trying to hit with rando guys, or since there's so few games, do you need to have higher floor? How is your strategy? What are you going to try to do? What are you going to try to target so you can cash on these lineups?
Yeah, so I'm going to be targeting the guys that are going to get a lot of carries, like the Mizzle guy, Corey Grant. Might sprinkle in a little bit of Damian Williams. But I'm going to be stacking a lot. So I'm going to be stacking games and teams, not just quarterbacks and receivers and tight ends. So I'm going to be stacking matchups mostly and trying to hit on that matchup like we did with Jacksonville, New England. So Philadelphia, they'll probably score a lot, and Jacksonville, they'll probably score a lot. So Tampa Bay, Jacksonville would probably be a nice stack. The defense I like the best would maybe be the Ravens. They look good, and they're going against Jay Cutler, who likes to throw a lot of picks. So Matt Moore does too. So they should have some turnover opportunities.
All right, so let's jump in then. Let's move away from Thursday and into the weekend series, and we'll start, it looks like, with Seattle and Minnesota. Seahawks, Vikings, what are you kind of looking at in this battle?
So Trevon Boykin, he's pretty good.
He stole the show in that game, didn't he?
Man, he looked good. She's been really impressive the last preseason and this. He's one of the best backups in the league, maybe, especially for that offense.
And it's a like-for-like sub. If anything would happen with Wilson, I mean, Seattle's going to keep doing what they do with Boykin because they're very similar in their attributes.
So he could be maybe like a little guy you pick up one week who has a good matchup if Wilson is out, and maybe get a nice start out of him, a little play start one week if Wilson goes out. So just keep that in mind. But he had over 15 DK points last week, and I would imagine his floor would actually be like 8 this week. So
yeah, I mean, he's going to get work. I mean, they like what he's doing. They're obviously going to try to showcase him as much as possible. So, I mean, that might be a guy that you can play as a good, safe floor in a cash game.
Yep, and with the Seahawks receivers, one's going to hit a deep ball.
Yep.
And so you don't really know who, but the one I'm going to go with is a little bit of the homer helmet here, but Tanner McAvoy. He led them last year in receiving yards in the preseason. So I'm guessing they like him enough to see what they got in him. Probably score a long TD.
So you're liking Boykin and McAvoy for Seattle.
Just a little side note, the Seahawks did look good on defense last week, and they're going against the Vikings, who didn't look that good on offense.
Well, let's talk about Minnesota on offense. Who you said they didn't look very good.
No.
Delvin Cook, what did you think of him?
He looked good.
Yeah.
Himself, he looked good.
He was really high owned.
Yep, he was. He was a little bit too high owned, so got to maybe try to look at the ownerships if you can. But he looked good. Really, the only guy I want to target in this game is Stacey Collie. He was really only the standout, and all he had was 3 catches and 67 yards. They have liked him in training camp thus far, though, so he's a guy you can target. Laquan Treadwell just had his first practice a few days ago, so I want to maybe check the reports and see if he's going to get a lot of playing time, because he could be a guy that they want to get going. They want to see what they got in him.
And the problem with Minnesota is they only have the 3 active quarterbacks on their roster. They've got Bridgewater on it, but he's obviously not. Or Bridgewater on it, he's obviously not going to play. Yeah. Bradford, they're going to limit his snaps because if he goes out, here's your list of backups: Taylor Heinke, and Case Keenum.
And Keenum actually looked better.
And you'd have thought.
Think that.
I mean, Case has shown at times to be able to go off and get you some DFS points.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he's also put up some negative numbers in the DFS game as well. So
mostly stay away from this game or from the Vikings this week is what I'm saying. Maybe you could sneak in their defense a little bit, but I'm mostly staying away from them.
So big pass on that game. But if you want to go contrarian, I mean, maybe that's where you go as you try to find Minnesota. It's preseason. Who knows what happens?
Yep.
A lot of teams don't even really game plan to the extent that they would in the normal regular season.
That's
so
true.
maybe Minnesota is a contradiction play, and you could cash out if the Vikings do some stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about another game on our list, and it is the Washington Redskins and the Green Bay Packers, and it is the battle of our bet. The 2 quarterbacks with the best floor. I believe the bet last week was who would have the better game, the better floor.
Better floor cash play. Who was the better cash play? And it turned out that Dave definitely nailed it. because McCoy didn't do that well. He did throw a pick at the end.
McCoy had what, 2 points?
He threw a pick at the end of the half.
So did Brett Hundley.
Yeah, they both throwing it up. But, he didn't play too well, so I'm a little down on him this week.
Hundley got you 7, and that 7, he didn't look as good as Brett Hundley has looked.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that might be a guy you could play, but I think a lot of people are kind of on that train.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it looks like some of the top-owned guys might be in this game. You might have McCoy,
and it should be a high-scoring game. They're not the world's best at defense, these teams.
Well, and Green Bay is going to throw it. McCarthy likes to throw the football around, and they have 4 quarterbacks on their roster that can sling it.
Just on a side note, for season long, I don't think they're going to run it that much. I really don't. I think that's why they like having Ty Montgomery as they're running. I think they're going to just throw it a lot.
Well, I mean, New England, a couple years back, went to a Super Bowl just dinking and dunking.
Exactly.
And if you needed a yard, they threw a swing pass out to a running back or hit a check down on a slant. I mean, this might be, you know, a kind of a Steve Spurrier-like offense where you just, dink and dunk your way down the field and hit some big plays, later.
So that'll be something to watch during the preseason, is just to see if they actually try to establish a running game, because so far they haven't.
So let's just actually jump back up. We'll talk about Washington first.
Okay.
Who do you like from the Washington team, and what do you think of their squad?
So Robert Davis, he's actually looked pretty good in the preseason training camp so far. He looked good in his first game as well. He saw 6 targets, and he really has that big playability. So the quarterback that I like in this game the most is going to be Nate Sudfeld, and Green Bay has kind of been known to give up the big plays. So those two stacked together would be kind of a nice option for you.
Well, and they did give up some big plays.
Oh, just blown coverages
against Washington. Kevin King gave up a couple of big plays. The touchdown that Matt Collins caught, Clay Matthews had a sack in the backfield, couldn't finish it.
Yep.
Kevin King's eyes were in the backfield looking at the sack, gave up on his route. Matt Collins caught it. King caught back up to him, couldn't make the tackle, and Collins scored a touchdown. So, I mean, maybe that's where you can take advantage of that Green Bay secondary where, they're still learning how to play. They have a lot of young guys in that secondary, and they're still trying to figure out who is going to play in that secondary.
And this game is weird because it's going to be high scoring, but you don't know exactly where to target it, where other games you do. You look at the Green Bay side, and you think Brett Hundley is going to be a decent play, but like you said, he might be kind of highly owned just because of the name. So I would maybe still give him a shot because Washington does give up some passing yards. You can stack him with Michael Clark. He was a former basketball player, right?
Yes, he is.
So they threw a jump ball up to him in a fade in the corner of the end zone. And he came down with it. So I'm going to guess they're going to test that out a little bit more, see what they got in him. Receiver Max McCaffrey saw 7 targets, and he seems like the favorite for Joe Callahan. So if you want to stack Joe Callahan with Max McCaffrey, not a bad choice.
Well, I'm very curious to see what Green Bay is going to do with their quarterbacks. Is Aaron Rodgers going to play? If he does, he's going to get a series, and that might be worth just throwing it out there to get your 7 points and call it good.
Yeah.
If you're in a cash lineup, if he plays, he might not play. If he doesn't, how long is Brett Hundley going to play?
Yep.
They kind of know what Hundley can do, but I would imagine they're going to give him a little bit of an extended run.
Quarter and a half, maybe.
Does he play the rest of the first half?
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, who comes in next? Yeah. Is it Callahan or is it Tyson Hill? Because
good, right?
Hill looked awesome, and he's more of an athlete than Callahan is. And all word out of Green Bay is that Tyson Hill might push Callahan for that number 3 job. So it'd be interesting to see how that timeshare kind of splits out. That's maybe why I'm pivoting away from Green Bay quarterbacks is because I'm not sure how they're going to space out their time.
It's really hard to pinpoint who to play in this game, but you want some exposure to it because there's going to be some high scoring. You could even look at Trevor Davis, who had the kick or punt return for a touchdown, Jeff Janis as well.
Janis caught a touchdown last week. Davis had a punt return for a touchdown. Those are 2 guys that seem to be battling for the same spot for the second straight year. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. But definitely Green Bay has some players you could use.
Yep.
I would expect them to score, but it'll be interesting to see who exactly comes out and kind of puts in a performance for them.
And then just a little side note, injury watch. Ty Montgomery might not play. He kind of was banged up. And then Malachi Dupree, he's not going to play.
Not going to play. Concussion. So, who would you look for Green Bay's running backs if Montgomery doesn't go?
You got to think Williams, right?
Williams, yeah.
I mean, he's the next in line, and they kind of want to see what they got going with him.
Yeah, and Williams, they're saying, could be the starter, the rookie out of BYU.
Yeah.
But, they also drafted 2 other guys, Aaron Jones and Devontae Mays. So at what point do those guys get extended run as well?
Yep.
All right, well, let's jump on. We've spent enough time on our Homer team. Let's let's jump down to the next game on our list, Tennessee versus Carolina, 2 teams that can put up some points in a hurry.
And Calvin Benjamin, and Christian McCaffrey, they both looked good in that game, didn't they?
Yeah, I think everyone had Christian McCaffrey on their team. I mean, he was owned by everyone in that contest.
Yeah, I mean, it made sense. You wanted to fade the Hall of Fame game, and then really you were just left with McCaffrey. So,
but I tell you what, there was 2 guys that really took advantage of their extended playing time, and they stood out in a major way.
You're talking about Carolina's side?
Yes, on Carolina's side.
This was another really good call you had. This was probably our second best call that we had of the whole slate. You can say it since it was your call.
You go for it. I'm not.
So Joe Webb, he is always a good preseason quarterback. Mm-hmm. So do not forget that. And he has continued that streak. He continued that streak last week.
Well, in Carolina, I like guys like Boykin in Seattle and Webb in Carolina because what are they? They are basically a less talented version of the current starter.
Yeah.
So they're going to run all of their best stuff with those guys because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Joe Webb is like a mini, very cheap version of Cam Newton.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's not Cam Newton, but he has some of the same skill sets that Cam does, and that's how they use him.
And those running backs right there that you named, those guys run the ball too, so they got a little bit more of a floor, especially against these weaker defenses. They're going to be able to run the ball a little bit more.
And who did Joe Webb hook up with? Demary Bird?
Yeah, and he's a big play guy. He actually saw 6 targets, so out of a speedster like that makes big plays, that's something to look for. And
he was extremely motivated, I guess, because that game was against the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson came back to the Carolinas, playing in Raleigh. There was a ton of Clemson fans.
Yep.
And Bird, who played for South Carolina, felt really disrespected that Gamecock fans were not at the game.
Yep.
There was too much orange, he said, in the stadium cheering for Clemson. And he made a little drop. He said, man, you only see the orange when Clemson wins a national title. Other than that, you never see orange. So he was digging. He was definitely digging at the Clemson fans, the rival, the in-state rival. So gotta love a guy with that kind of moxie.
Yeah. A little side note on Brenton Beerson. He actually got injured in that game, so I don't know the injury status on him, but I don't think he's playing. So that kind of made Bird a little bit more. You want to target him a little bit more now.
And kind of like what we talked about in the last podcast. It'd be interesting to see what these guys' ownerships are going to be because they had good games, and I wonder if people are just going to look at last week's totals, say, "Oh, this guy did great. I'm going to play him."
Yep.
So maybe some of the picks that didn't hit last week that we talked about,
like Jakeem Grant,
maybe that he comes out of nowhere, low ownership, gets you 8 points.
Yep.
Maybe he returns a punt, maybe he catches a deep ball. I mean, maybe it's some of those guys that had big targets and they didn't maybe capitalize on them that could really win you your week.
Exactly.
On Tennessee's side of the ball, what are you looking at?
The 2 running backs, Akeem Judge, he actually had a really nice run against the Jets. It was very impressive. If you have a chance, go back and just look him up on Twitter. I'm sure it's the first thing that pops up. He also looked good in practice, breaking out big runs like that as well. Derrick Henry actually got about 8 carries in that game, so that's pretty good for a guy that's that talented.
Yeah, and I had a little bit of his share, too. I expect him to actually take over that job from DeMarco Murray this year.
Do you?
I
that's
really
your bold call?
I don't know if it's a bold call, but I think by the end, he's going to out. This team on offense is pretty loaded. They've got Marcus Mariota at the quarterback position. They've got talented receivers. They came in and got Eric Decker. Harry Douglas came over from Atlanta. They've got Javon Curse. or Jonathan Kersey from Vanderbilt. They've got some guys that can make plays, and they also drafted Corey Davis out of Western Michigan. So they've got some talent.
So Mariota has been moving up a little bit too much on the draft boards, actually. So we kind of hope he does a little bit poorer in preseason and then kick his stock back down a little bit.
Yeah, he was highly owned in his contest. Sorry about that background noise. I opened up a window on my laptop, and I didn't know that ESPN was automatically playing a video.
At least it was
everyone
ESPN.
loves those.
At least it was ESPN, so.
Everyone loves those, yeah. We're gonna pivot away from that.
Back to the tight ends. Taywan Taylor. He's a guy that saw 9 targets, and he got you 9 DK points, and I think he's going to keep it up. So, once again, Taywan Taylor.
Well, our producer, Elliot, chimed in there. What was that, Elliot?
Let's hear it.
The interruption there could have been way worse. Thank God it was just ESPN.
Yeah, there's plenty of other websites that...
No, this is a work laptop.
It's a work laptop, yeah.
So we were safe.
We were safe. Safe play.
My laptop.
That's my cash play. Cash play of the week. Only look at safe work websites on your work computer. Yep. Play of the week. So let's move on from this Tennessee-Carolina game because it's given us nothing but trouble. Let's move on to Cincinnati versus Kansas City.
Another guy you want to look up on Twitter, Jeff Driscoll. Man,
Jeff Driscoll.
He had a crazy juke move on like 2 defenders.
Wait, Driscoll had a juke move?
Oh, it was great. If you're listening to this, you should pull it up on Twitter.
I'm scared to do anything with my computer.
You're right. You should do that personally. But yeah, no, it was cool. And he actually had 1 passing TD and 1 rushing TD, actually. So he's a guy that I probably get some exposure to.
And he's a high pedigree guy. I mean, people look at where he went to school, Louisiana Tech, and they're like, well, I don't know about him. But he was actually one of the top quarterback recruits coming out of high school. He went to Florida, played a couple years under Will Muschamp, transferred to Louisiana Tech, lit the world on fire, and now he's playing.
And
for Cincinnati.
This film was one of the best I saw for the quarterback position last week. I mean, for backups at least. Another guy's film that looked good was Joe Mixon. The hype is real on him, and this week he should get more carries. First week they're kind of just getting his feet wet, so I bet he'll get more carries this week.
This is the type of film that Joe Mixon wants, not some of the other film that's been around.
Yeah, that's another thing we just want to kick to the side.
Just kick it to the side. When you talk about Joe Mixon in film, you have to.
Yeah, you're right.
Clarify.
We're not saying film anymore, so just Joe Mixon hype is real.
And I like Driscoll. I mean, he's going to get the whole second half. I'd imagine. I mean, maybe depending on how long they play Dalton, but I can't imagine there's much out there for them.
Yeah.
To maybe Dalton gets 1 or 2 series. McCarron gets the rest of the first half, and maybe Driscoll's a guy you'd look at. I mean, maybe he gets an extended run.
I think he's going to get a half a play, so he's a nice little option. Just staying on the Cincinnati Bengals side, what did you think of Spencer Ware? I thought he looked pretty decent. I mean, he finally got a rushing touchdown. He was like 1 out of the last 9 weeks. He got a rushing TD.
For Kansas City?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Kansas City, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I mean, Kansas City, they did some really good things. I'm really excited to see what Pat Mahomes brings in week 2.
Yeah.
Quarterback that they went up and got in the draft. He played really well. A lot of those first-year guys, those rookies played great.
So people were saying last year that people should wait on quarterback, and they're saying that a lot this year. But those rookie quarterbacks look really
Deshaun
good.
Watson looked great. Mahomes looked great. Trubisky, who we'll talk about later, looked fantastic. Kaiser.
It's surprising. And then even Christian Hackenberg, who the Jets say is their rookie because he didn't get that much reps last year, he looked decent too. So,
which is shocking to me because usually the quarterbacks, the young guys, don't look great.
Yeah, so Patrick Mahomes, he's a guy I can see myself playing, and a guy who's going to be really low owned is Albert Wilson. He's kind of a possession guy, kind of a guy fighting for the second receiver role, so he should get some run. And behind Tyreek Hill, Tyreek Hill might not even be the number 1 receiver for State. He is, but he's a big play guy more so.
Yeah, he's more out of the slot. He's not really the lineup traditional receiver.
Exactly.
He's the guy that they're going to try to target out of the slot.
So that receiver situation is definitely something that you want to watch.
Oh yeah, there's not a whole lot locked down in that Kansas City wide receiving core.
You got Travis Kelce, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So,
tight end. And speaking of tight ends, I like Demetrius Harris.
Do you? Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he played last week, or he had very limited run.
I remember looking at him last week for sure.
He's a guy that came on at the end of last season and really performed well in the 2 tight end sets. When Kelce and him were on the field at the same time, he performed really well. He's an undrafted rookie or not a rookie. He's an undrafted guy. I don't even think he's second year. ESPN has him at 4 years. So he's been around for a while, but he used to play basketball at Milwaukee.
Okay, so
he was a basketball player, but he was an extreme project, 6'7", 230. He really started to come into his own at the end of last season, and I think that's a guy that they do want to look at because they have some tight ends on their roster that have experience with Travis Kelce, Galvin Escobar who played for the Cowboys, and Harris. I think Harris, if he plays, they're going to try to use him.
And a lot of times when you see someone coming over from a different sport or switching positions, teams want to see what they got in them, if there is hope for them, or if they just need to cut their ties with that.
Well, he's been with the team for 4 years, so I mean he's definitely
they know what
in their
they
plans.
got. Yeah, exactly, and that's something that they want to get to more is those two tight end sets. You got to imagine that's why they got rid of Macklin.
I mean, in this game, I'm going to stay with Homer stuff.
He got the most yards, I think. The guy you're about to say.
Alex Erickson?
Yeah.
From Wisconsin? Yeah, I'll put it on. I mean, he does.
That is more Homer than Corey Clement.
It's Homer because we just talked about Harris, but
yeah.
Alex Erickson, he's a good receiver.
Man, this helmet.
It's so small.
Oh, it's sexy, though. I mean, look at it.
I like Erickson because he punts, does punt returns, does kick returns. He didn't really do too much of that in the first game. I think he only had one attempt at punt return, so he's in a battle for that.
That's why he didn't, because he was doing that during the year. So they want to see if they can find someone else. So.
But he definitely had some good run in the past game. He had a few targets. Definitely a guy that they're looking at to try to get more involved in the offense. So maybe that's a guy that you can play that a lot of people don't know about. I'm taking this off because I can't hear anything.
Okay, I want you to grab my trade that actually features Spencer Ware.
Okay.
So on my team, I had Dalvin Cook, who was it? Delaney Walker, and Mike Evans.
Okay.
And the offer that I had was Gronk, Cooper, and Spencer Ware. Which side wins?
Say it again one time. Sorry, I'm still recovering from the helmet squeezing off blood to my brain.
So it's Gronk, Cooper, and Ware.
Yep, on your side.
For Delaney Walker, Cook, and Mike Evans.
Which Cook?
Dalvin
Cook, Mike Evans. I like the first side with Gronk.
Yeah, and I accepted that.
For sure.
Trade. Yeah,
I would have took that all day, every day. And I think Cooper could be one of the breakout receivers this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Carr
and that brings up a point I want to make up is that Spencer Ware is still the starting running back.
Sure.
And Cook might not be he's looked good, but he might not be the starting running back. I mean, I really wouldn't be surprised if those two finished with around the same amount of points. It's just the rookies get a lot more hype than people that have been around. And Andy Reid brought up how Spencer Ware really wasn't being used correctly. He didn't really
know what to do with him.
Yeah, put him in the starting role. And now this year, this whole offseason, he's kind of been talking up Spencer Ware. So that's maybe a guy you can look at a little bit more. It was a little surprising that Kareem Hunt didn't get that much run in this game. Just a little side note. So it'll be really interesting to see if he plays more because he was a really hyped up rookie as well.
So let's move on to another game. We've been kind of sitting on games for a while here. Let's kind of speed it up. Dallas Cowboys versus Indianapolis Colts. Not a lot of plays that we're looking at in this game, but who are some of the guys that you like?
I mean, Cash, you definitely have to play. Rico Gathers, he's going to be the highest owned tight end. He's done really well the last 2 weeks they've played, and honestly, he might be the future star tight end for that team. He's looked really good. I mean, Jason Witten might be going out the door.
Another former basketball player.
So exactly, they want to see what they got in him. They're giving him looks, and so far he's looked good. I think he's had like 14 DK points both weeks. So I mean, that's really good. Is it Tremaine Pope? Yeah, and he's a guy. He had 4.4 yards per carry last week, and he also has the ability to catch the ball in the backfield. So that's a guy that you want to target in Dallas Cowboy offense because they're going to run the ball, and you don't think that McFadden's going to get that much run now with the whole Zeke Elliott news, and then Morris is kind of a proven vet. They know what they got in him. So, I mean, Rod Smith looked good week 1. He didn't play too much week 2, so I like Pope.
The one guy I'm interested in
that's from the Colts, so I'm sorry.
The one guy I'm interested in from Dallas is Ryan Switzer. He's been injured for most of training camp. He's coming back.
Yeah,
getting close to full strength. Yeah. Another punt returner, kick returner guy that guys I like.
And they've been talking him up.
And they've been, he very much fits in the mold of Cole Beasley and very well could be a better version of Cole Beasley as the season goes on or maybe into next year. So that's a guy I'm definitely looking at to see how his game from the college level translates to the NFL.
You think that offense gets better or worse this year just in production?
It's got to get worse, right?
I think so, too.
It has to. They were so good last year that I don't know if they can do better than that.
Yep.
Let's move on. New York Jets, Detroit Lions. What are you looking at?
So this is probably my favorite low ownership stacking game possible, because you got the Christian Hackenberg, who threw the ball 25 times. And, I mean, he looked okay. I mean, he wasn't bad. But they say he's going to do that again. He's going to throw the ball and play and have a lot of reps in this game.
So it might be a good cash play for sure.
Exactly.
Just with the volume.
And Robbie Anderson, who's the number one, he's real. He's a good talent. He's a nice sleeper pick for you to play in season long. I mean, he looked good last week. Another guy who's probably wide receiver number 2, if Anderson doesn't pan out, is
I mean, the Jets are just kind of a cluster F in their receiving core. I mean, they've got so many guys.
I like those two the most, though.
There's so many guys that are just vying for spots. Yeah. And it's it'll be interesting to watch week to week to see if anyone grabs a hold of that number 1 and number 2 job, because that might be a place you could go in your standard league, pick up on the waiver wire, or from week to week even throw some Jets receivers in there based on matchup in DFS later in the year, because teams are going to write off the Jets because they're just going to be god-awful this year.
They look like an NFL team last week, too. I mean, I know it's preseason and all, but they played fine.
But, I mean, they're by far the worst team in the division, right?
Oh, in the league. So
I mean, they're trying to lose.
Yeah, I mean,
they're gonna put up some points. You would think at some point.
Yeah, and then I know we talked about Austin Seferian-Jenkins possibly being a nice little ad later in the year. Chad Henson is a tight end that's looked good in camp so far, and he could be a guy that you might want to get a little bit of exposure to if you're stacking this game.
Yeah, he played at Cal. Good receiver for the Golden Bears last year. What about Detroit?
So you got the preseason darling in Zach Center here.
Yep, everyone loves Zach Center.
They do, and he's
Mr. August.
He's really not going to let you. I like that, Mr. August. Perfect. But Dwayne Washington as well. Those are two guys. They both had 30 yards, and I mean, I know they kind of limit each other's upside, but they got a nice little floor for cash play. And then the big news was Kenny Galladay. Really looked good. He lived up to the hype with his performance last. I mean, he looked good. He could be their wide receiver number 1. But it was the first week, so let's
pump the brakes, and we'll see what's going on. Maybe he can repeat that in week 2.
Yeah, I mean, don't overdraft him. Or I saw someone dropped Brandon Marshall in one of my leagues for Kenny Galladay. I don't know. I was like, what are you doing? So
you're serious? Your league's already making ads and drops? That's a serious league.
It's a money league, so yeah.
He's already drafted as a keeper?
No, it's a redraft.
Man, you guys are already drafted, and you're already doing ads and drops. You guys are legit.
I can't believe that. But, I mean, yeah. And then for quarterback to stack with him was Jake Rudock. Rudock, he had 15 DK points, and he's probably going to have more to come of that because he's, they only have 3 active.
Well, yeah, but they've got Brad Kaya. I mean, I would think they'd give
Kaya he looked good too.
Over Jake Rudock.
He did look good, too. Those are both options you can go with. I'll probably go with Rudock just because he's a little bit more experienced, but I could see why you do that as well. They both look good.
Detroit's always been able to put up points. That's not their issue. Yeah. So maybe that's a place you go.
So, this is a nice little game to have a nice stack. You're going to have a little bit higher ownership in Kenny Galladay and probably Zach Zenner. But coming back on the other side, Jets players are going to be low owned.
Yeah, so let's there's some action you can maybe use in that game. Let's move on to our next game. The top scoring team of the week last week, the New England Patriots, and the team that played
Jaguars.
Well, Jaguars won the game, but Patriots were in the. I think their players might might have had the top DFS points.
Oh yeah, everyone did well. I mean, the 2 quarterbacks, Jimmy G and Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett, yeah, the quarterbacks. I mean, you'd imagine that they're going to get the same type of run that they got.
They're both going to play half most likely. Yeah. So. What I would do is I would play both of them in about, 25% of your lineups each.
And mix them up?
Yeah, and mix them up. And then at running back, LaShawn Daniels Jr., he saw 11 carries for 50 yards. And something the Patriots like to do in preseason games is get these guys that probably aren't going to make the team. They just like to get them a lot of carries and kind of see what they got to do with Tyler Gaffney last year. He's a guy that's not on the team anymore. So he's a guy I like to target probably this week at running back. Then you look at receiver and tight end, and man, I see 9, 7, and 7 targets for players on the Patriots. That's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even see.
Last week we weren't sure who was going to get the targets for New England. And who knows? Maybe this week it might be 3 completely different guys.
They would.
But these were the guys that stood out last week.
Jacob Hollister, that was another nice call you had. Austin Carr and KJ May. So like I said, they all saw above 7 targets, which is what you want. And Carr and May had a touchdown each, and Jacob Hollister, I think he had 18 points on 7 receptions and 116 receiving yards. I mean, that's...
He's the Wyoming guy. You know, he played with Josh Allen last year, who's projected to be maybe the top pick in the NFL draft next year. So, I mean, he's played with talent.
Yeah.
A lot of people just didn't see him because he played in Wyoming. And how many Wyoming games does the common fan watch? I mean,
hopefully they didn't see him.
Yeah, hopefully they didn't see him in the preseason either, because he's a guy that took over games in the
I think last week is that they like to target the tight end, and
they do.
Dwayne Allen's in there, but who knows? Maybe this could be the guy.
All right, let's move over to Houston. A lot of positives from their young offense last week.
I mean, Watson and Foreman both looked really good, and even Irvin, who's like a second-year guy, they all looked good. Foreman had 9 carries for 76 yards, and he added 2 passes.
See, I think what really surprised me about Deshaun Watson was his maturity in the scramble game. I mean, he got
better as the game went on.
Well, and when he broke the pocket, his head wasn't down immediately.
That's true.
A lot of rookie quarterbacks, they get the rush coming in their face, and they panic, and they start looking down, they try to run for 5 yards. Watson's eyes were up the entire game, and a lot of times he was able to dump it over that first line for completions. And, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Belichick schemes against him to see... I don't know how much Belichick's going to show, because Houston might be a team that New England plays later in the year. So do you really want to show Deshaun Watson things that he can have tape on and learn from? Or do they stay vanilla? Because Houston and Tennessee are probably the favorites in the AFC South, so they have a good chance of maybe playing New England in the playoffs.
And this is a game that you kind of want to stack, and especially at quarterback. There's 3 very viable options at quarterback, because Watson's going to play, I think they said, about a full half, so that's nice. Looking at other options just real quick is Dress Anderson. He saw 8 targets. You go back to the tight end that Houston has.
That's your boy, Ryan Griffin.
Ryan Griffin and Stephen Anderson, they're both guys, but they both are tight ends that would be worth stacking with the quarterback. A little side note is Wendell Williams has looked really good in camp. He's a big play guy. And
they're looking for one of those down in Houston.
Exactly, and with Will Fuller out. And then side note, Braxton Miller is currently leading the second receiver battle. All
right, so let's jump into another game with a rookie quarterback. That's Arizona versus Chicago. How about Mitchell Trubisky?
I was surprised first of all, I was surprised how bad Glennon looked, and then you got Trubisky coming in and looked that good. It's like, uh-oh.
And I'm still having trouble going with Mitchell.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so used to it being Mitch Trubisky, but now it's Mitchell.
As Packer fans, you could go with a little explicit in there, too. But no, he threw the ball 25 times.
That was a
lot. He was just really impressive. I mean, he was sharp, really sharp, and he looked quick too with his decision making and footwork. So I was just really impressed with that.
He's got Bear fans in love. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, we're in Wisconsin, but we do get the Chicago radio.
We're border. Yeah. Oh yeah. We get some of those big stations out of Chicago, and they are in love with Trubisky. So who are guys that he's going to target if you like playing him in DFS this week?
So Dante Thompson and Victor Cruz, they both saw 14 targets combined. Oh yeah. Okay, back to that, and then they got 21 DK points combined. That's combined, but it was pretty interchangeable. They both look good and are both targets. My boy Tariq Cohen, he had 5.1 yards per carry, and he's kind of been their camp darling so far. So he's a guy that could target.
And the Bears are a team you want to target because people see Chicago, they see their roster, and they just pass.
Mm-hmm.
And
they are going against a good defense historically too, but once again, it's preseason.
But I mean, the Bears have some guys that can make plays every once in a while.
They do.
I mean, they might not win the division this year, but I don't know. I don't think they're going to finish last. They're going to contend with Detroit at least, and then maybe even Minnesota. It wouldn't shock me if at the end of the season Chicago finished second in the North. Like, it's not that crazy.
Producer, what's the over/under for wins for Chicago? Can you look that up for us and get that to us?
Yes, sir. Just a minute.
Okay, but going off on that, my point is that I bet that's something worth betting. Is that it'll be more than what they're projected at?
I would think they're at 6.
6? I was going to say 4.
You think 4? I don't think there's any way they're
5, maybe.
Like I said, I think it's 6. We'll come back to that once we get that. Just drop that in, Al, once you have it. Let's talk about Arizona.
Yeah, so Elijah Penny, he didn't actually do that well week 1, which I liked him week 1, but I stuck with him. He's one of those guys where just because they don't do well week 1 doesn't mean they're not going to do well week 2. And obviously Arizona played in the Hall of Fame game, so that's why they have 2 games in. But he ran the ball 14 times and had 54 yards the second week. And that's a nice floor, and he's a guy that they really like. Going off on that, he's battling Andre Ellington for that running back 3 position / maybe take over for Chris Johnson. And Ellington was a guy that used to be he was fantasy relevant. I mean, he was a nice running back for 2 years ago. So Ellington actually has 18 DK points throughout 2 games, so that's pretty nice.
He's definitely a guy. Penny's definitely a guy that I would come back to. I mean, we were all over him in week 1. It didn't really work out for him. He still got 14 touches, like you said.
Yeah.
He only got 54 yards, but 14 touches. He's going to be low-owned.
People forgot about him.
People forget about him. And if he's going to have that many touches, that's what you want.
You want to go out. Chances are you get those touches, you're going to get some touchdowns.
Right. So,
maybe not specifically for him, but we're targeting these guys that have a lot of touches.
Because if touches equal production, typically. So, that's what we're looking at. So don't forget about him.
This game, you can honestly stack all 3 running backs and probably have a nice, safe floor of 15 points, which isn't bad.
What did you think about Denver's quarterbacks?
They don't look that, they're just killing the fantasy.
Simeon was 6 for 7, 51 yards, and Lynch was 6 of 9, 42 yards. They were okay.
Yeah, but the yardage is my problem. They're just killing the fantasy production for those players.
Simeon was 7.3. That was better than Trubisky. Lynch was 4.7, which isn't great, but 7.3 is not terrible.
Well, I mostly played Lynch because of his running ability. So,
but I think that's probably Simeon's job to lose, in my opinion, probably.
I think they said that Lynch was going to start week 2. That's something I got to check on. So they're definitely fighting for a starting position, and they didn't look good against a Bears defense that isn't supposed to be the world's greatest.
Well, they didn't play last week.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that. They only scored 24 points, but one of those drives was led by Kyle Stolter, so it wasn't even the first team.
Yeah.
First team guys.
One of my favorite running backs last week, we didn't really get a touch on the show, but is D'Angelo Henderson. He did pretty well. He's kind of a little bit of a sleeper in the fantasy community. I could actually see this guy coming up and taking the starting position. Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
Can't tell anyone that. Shh. But he's a guy to preseason. Because, C.J. Anderson, we kind of seen what he's done. He's banged up all the time. Jamal Charles is always banged up. And we saw what we had in Booker. Booker did not look good last year when he got the starting position. So
and Stephen Ridley did nothing in the first game.
And they gave him 7 carries, and he didn't have a good yards per carry.
Stephen Ridley, 8 carries, 2.1 yards, 17 rushing yards. So not what you were looking for from Stephen
Ridley. Do you
Ridley.
have a Henderson stat line there?
Henderson, 7 for 54, 7.7 and a touchdown.
And that touchdown he broke off was actually really impressive.
He also had 1 catch for 1 yard.
Yeah, so he's a nice play to go back to because their opponent is not that great at stopping the run normally. But sticking on the Denver side, Cody Lattimore and Isaiah McKenzie. Cody Lattimore had 7 catches and 56 yards. And
7 targets.
That's something that he's going to repeat most likely because he's a guy that catches a lot of passes.
And we're, speaking of McKenzie, that was a guy we told you about last week.
Exactly. We said he was a big play guy, and that's exactly what happened. And, heck, he could probably have
1 target, 1 catch, 47 yards.
Talk about being spot
and a touch.
Jeez.
That's exactly what we told you that the guy could do. He is also involved in the punt return, kick return game. Yep. So, I imagine they're trying to get him more involved in the offense because he's instant offense.
Yep. That wide receiver 3 spot is, open, especially if maybe they go 4 receiver sets a little bit more too because Cody Lattimore, he's a little bit of a PPR guy, I guess. But yeah, that was a nice call by you.
And we kind of jumped into Denver there without really transitioning out of Arizona, Chicago. But Denver, they're taking on the 49ers. We just went through all the Broncos plays. Yeah. Let's go through San Francisco's plays.
So Raheem Mostert, I don't even know how to say it.
No clue.
But he looked
Mostert? That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't catch a lot of 49ers games. So.
Yeah, exactly. You weren't really hoping to watch it. You didn't think they'd do too well, but he did. He had 15 carries, 89 yards. He looked good. The offensive coordinator there, he's a guy that likes to run the ball. So I would say he's a nice little target again this next week because 15 carries it's hard to stay away from, and he had 89 yards. He's going against the Broncos, who are traditionally good at stopping the run, but once again, it's preseason. Another guy to think about, kind of maybe as a sleeper here, but he looked good on film, was Aldrick Robinson. He has played with this coach before in Atlanta, So I kind of like him as maybe he could take over for Garcon, who's also played with that coach. But yeah, he just looked good. A guy that actually was the best receiver in the game, per se, was Kendrick Bourne. Yeah, 7 targets and scored a TD. He did have one called back on that drive as well. And he, in the end zone, it was like a 12-yard route. He went up and grabbed it, and he looked good.
So, I mean, you talked about Mostert, but how about Joe Williams, the rookie out of Utah? He had 7 carries for 60 yards, average of 8.6.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they want
to run the ball. San Francisco wants to run the football, and they have some guys that are clearly capable of doing it.
And Joe Williams is the guy that's been getting a lot of hype for that offense. So those two are two that I could see myself targeting. I mean, once again, those 3 running backs that we've mentioned, you could stack those all in this game and have a nice, safe floor of at least 15 points.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many DFS players are going to target San Francisco for offense.
Yeah,
I mean, C.J. Beathard had maybe one of the best games in DFS last week. He was 7 of 11, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was a long-time starter at Iowa, now getting some run in the NFL. He's definitely probably going to play most of the second half, so maybe that's, a guy you can target.
Going against Denver, who, it's a team that's, really good at defense, so you want to stay away. It's preseason, but that'll still kick his ownership down a little bit more.
So let's move to the last game on this slate, the Los Angeles Rams versus the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
Did you see what the Rams are doing?
What were they doing?
They're giving away free Rams tattoos.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. It's like, why would I want trash on my body?
Well, I mean, why would I want a tattoo of a team that's probably going to move in 10 years? Oh.
Just Rams, maybe?
Just Rams, yeah. Just go with Rams. Don't go with the Los Angeles. Go with Rams, because who knows? They might be in Albuquerque in 5 years.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Sticking with that trash, Gurley sure didn't look good.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm kind of on the same thinking path that you had for DeMarco Murray. I think Gurley might be losing his position.
But those are 2 completely different situations. I like Todd Gurley, man. He's still young. He's still explosive. Do you remember his rookie year?
Yeah.
I mean, that was just
he looked good.
That was just 2 years ago.
But when you keep running into the offensive line and keep running into them, that sometimes gets ingrained into your brain of what you can do. So it could be a slow comeback for Gurley. He's not going to just burst out of it. It's going to be a slow, gradual.
So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I bet you Gurley's close to 1,000 yards this year.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope so. I mean, he's going to regress back to the mean.
I mean, their team is not very good, so that hurts them.
But what really helped them was Sammy Watkins coming in.
Yeah. You like him, so maybe that'll help. I don't know.
That's a little bit of a crutch argument, but you got to think that opens up the offense.
Maybe
somewhat.
Jared Goff's still a quarterback, so I don't know.
The two receivers, Nelson Spruce, who was Hard Knocks last year, he was their kind of star of the show, and he looked good.
I thought Brian Quick was the star of Hard Knocks. Tipping over that golf cart last year.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool. That was awesome. But yeah, I mean, he looked good last week as well. And Cooper Kupp, those are both guys that are kind of nice cash plays. But going back to the running back position, Malcolm Brown and Justin Davis, they both look sharp in their first preseason game. A lot better than Gurley did. Kind of they're not the same linemen, but these are the backup linemen, so they're not as good. But they're really impressive to me. So that's kind of why I'm getting scared away from Gurley a little bit.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what the Oakland quarterbacks do in this game. You got Connor Cook and E.J. Manuel will probably get a lot of the run. Maybe Carr gets a series or 2. I'm sure they're not going to risk him.
He's still young, but he's just coming back from
the injury at the end of last year. But I would expect Manuel and Cook to get run. And Manuel was winning that battle in camp. He didn't play very great.
None of those 2 are that good. You saw.
But they're playing in Los Angeles. They're playing in LA. So maybe that's a low ownership quarterback you could target as DJ Manuel. I played him last week. I'll probably trot him out again just to see what happens.
Yeah.
But he's a dual option guy, so we'll see what happens.
And really, the only target I like for pass catching there is Clive Wolford. He saw 3 catches for 44 yards. I mean, that's pretty good for the tight end position because a lot of the times you put a tight end there and he gets a 0. So
yeah. So let's jump into the couple poll questions that we currently have going on the the
Twitter page.
The Twitter page, the Sit Start Polls Twitter page. We've been going for a while, so I'm losing track of what I'm saying here. But let's take a look at some of the ones we featured. I'm trying to find them here. What was the one? This is the one you liked right here. It was
the Zach Ertz one, the Eagles one.
Sure, go. You can go with that one. I think we have a graphic for that one.
So it's pretty much just like whose value increased the most with that the Jordan Matthews trade. And I honestly thought it'd be Jordan Matthews. I was kind of surprised that he's maybe becoming the number 1 receiver as opposed to the number 3. I mean, he was falling down in that depth chart. The winner of that right now is Alshon Jeffrey, I think, or Zach Ertz by 1%.
Zach Ertz by 1%, but that makes sense. I'm surprised Matthews isn't closer to that 33%. Exactly. He's going to be one of the only targets in Buffalo to throw to.
I think it's because right when I did this tweet, injury update on him actually came out about his sternum. So that kind of went hand in hand. So that's probably what pushed it down a little bit. But I get Zach Ertz because Matthews ran a lot of routes in the middle of the field, and that's kind of where Zach Ertz is going to operate too. So he's going to pick up some of that target share.
Sure. So, I mean, that was one of the polls we looked at. Thank you to the 1,000 people who voted on that poll. Exactly. Appreciate it. Let's jump into, I think we have this poll up too. It's which running back is the better handcuff, Kenyon Drake for Jay Ajayi or Jonathan Williams for LaShawn McCoy?
And this one really surprised me as well because Drake might not even be the handcuff. But I kind of did this poll for a reason because the hype is on Drake right now, or at least it was before he got the concussion. He is a little bit of a poor man's Ajayi, though. They like him. But Damian Williams, you got to think still the second on the depth chart. But I was surprised. I mean, Jonathan Williams is definitely the handcuff you want to have in this situation because LaShawn McCoy has injury history. So I really didn't get the results of this poll. So, I mean, if you're drafting McCoy, not a bad idea to handcuff him to Jonathan Williams.
And then I think we have one last poll that we've got queued up, and that's if Ezekiel Elliott's 6-game suspension is upheld, which player do you take first? Do you take Zeke if available, Todd Gurley, or Leonard Fournette?
And, you know, they're kind of going in the 3rd round, 4th round-ish. Zeke might actually be going a little bit later than that. Obviously, he did appeal, so we'll see the news on that. Kind of what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how fast Ezekiel Elliott gets back up to speed. I don't know if he hits the ground running when he gets back in week 6.
Can he practice? I didn't see that part of the suspension.
You know, I'm not sure, but how much run is he actually going to get? I mean, even in practice, I mean, because they've got to prepare for games. Like, it doesn't do them any favors to have Ezekiel Elliott
that's
taking
8
reps.
weeks where you can't use Zeke, too. So that could really hurt your team. But then again, when he comes back, you got a top 3 pick right there.
With one of the best offensive lines in football.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's hard to find where the spot is for Ezekiel Elliott, where to take him. I mean, he's definitely a guy you probably want on your team just based on his production and what he can do, but where do you get him?
Exactly. And if you do pull the trigger on him, you kind of got to pull the trigger early on Darren McFadden, you would think.
Yeah, you got to get one of the two. But McFadden or Morris, you have to get one of them.
Or else you're just
not doing it right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going back to the poll, though, I like the call that Fournette, as he's winning the poll right now. That could change, but he's got a pretty good lead right now. Over Gurley at 29%, Zeke's at 27%. Fournette, he just looked good last week, and he had a little bit of an impressive performance. He was falling forward, and we all know how Gurley looked.
Yeah.
And kind of the interesting thing about this poll is they're the top running backs taken in their respective drafts. So it was just kind of a little cool thing.
All right, so those are a couple polls that are currently up on SitStar Polls on Twitter. If you have any polls that you want to send to us, if you have any questions for DFS that you want the community to answer, send us, them. We'll get them up for you. We'll get some feedback. Like you see, we got thousands of votes on some of these polls, so it gives you a good bearing on what the DFS community and the fantasy football community is thinking. So, send us those polls.
Send, subscribe, like, retweet, do all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely sign up for notifications. We're going to try to do this podcast on Thursdays going forward.
Thursdays or Wednesdays.
Yeah, it's just
one of those two.
One of those 2 days.
Either right before the slate starts or Wednesday night.
So make sure you sign up for notifications. Just kind of depends on what happens with our schedule going forward to see if we're on Wednesday or Thursday. Go to YouTube, subscribe, like. Even if you're not going to watch the video again, just maybe go through and give us a like if you like what we're doing.
It helps.
Retweet us out. We're just trying to help you guys build a bigger community for the poll so you have a better crowd source for your daily fantasy and fantasy needs.
Really just let us know your questions, though, because that's, we like to help you guys. And, so just let us know what the questions you guys have, and we'll take care of you, and we'll post the questions or answer you directly. I just want to give a little shout-out to my voice for having a nice little comeback there. Little comeback story.
Little comeback story.
All right, what's the question? We got a question.
Pump it up on the mic.
We got one from Jimmy on the Periscope. Mixon or McCaffrey?
Gosh, that is such a good one. At the start of the season, it's going to be McCaffrey scoring the most points. But towards the end of the season, it probably will be Mixon.
I think so too.
If it's a PPR league, definitely McCaffrey. If it's standard,
I like Mixon.
I would probably go McCaffrey because he looked good and they were trying to feature him a lot. He's
going to play. I mean, they took him that high for a reason. I mean, they're trying to get him involved in the pass game.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's PPR, it's no question it's Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah. Real quick, since that was a good question, let's just go over the running backs. Let's tier them up. You got Fournette, Cook, Mixon, and McCaffrey. Order.
For rookies?
Yep. Where do you take them? I'm going to go Fournette.
Okay.
McCaffrey.
Cook.
No, Mixon just looks so good. Mixon right now and then Cook. But that is subject to change watching the film of preseason.
To be honest with you, of those four guys, I don't see much of a difference.
Yeah, it's really...
I mean, maybe McCaffrey's ahead of the rest of them. But,
well, Fournette's going to get more goal line carries than all those.
Yeah, but he's not going to get the... If it's PPR, then it's McCaffrey.
Yeah.
He's going to get those touches, catching the ball out of the backfield and in receiver sets. But, I mean, I don't know how much of a gap. Yeah. I'm not sure any one of those guys comes onto the scene like Ezekiel Elliott did.
Yeah, and if you're drafting now, go with McCaffrey. But if you're going to wait and, if the draft's not until a couple of weeks, watch the film and we'll get back to you with the update on that for sure and what we see.
You might be able to get some of those other guys like Cook and Mixon lower in your drafts too. I mean, they're going to have a role this year, you would think. But McCaffrey and Fournette are going so high that those other two guys might be guys you can get later on.
And what you want is Jeremy Hill to have a great preseason and just kick Mixon down a couple of rounds maybe.
Yeah.
So
because you know that won't carry over for Jeremy Hill. It never has.
No. He has a couple of good games here and there. So.
Hey, Al, did we ever get that win-loss projection for Chicago?
We're sitting at 5.5.
5.5.
That's tough.
Okay, so
they're over that.
Gets it right.
They're over that for sure.
Yeah.
They win 7.
7. I can see them winning 6.
I'll put a bet up for that they'll get 7.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, we'll figure something out.
I got a Bears jersey for you to wear.
I'll wear it.
That's fine.
Is
it Forte?
Tell me it's Cutler.
I've got a Cutler.
I'll wear the Cutler if he loses.
Got Peyton.
Okay.
Benson.
Okay.
We'll see what you like.
Bet ideas. I think
we should have the viewers tweet us in a bet idea for the Brett Hundley.
Yeah.
Colt McCoy bet that you have to pay up.
I was thinking I don't know. Never mind.
We'll do a poll. So viewers send us some, and we'll think of something. We'll do a poll, and whatever the poll is,
I was thinking like something like mean during the podcast, like have to do like 25 push-ups while you're doing something.
No one wants to see that.
Exactly.
So why would we do that?
It's painful for me, painful for the viewers.
It'd be way more painful if I had to do the push-ups.
Exactly. So that's why I'm trying to. I don't know.
We'll figure something out. Send us some replies. Let us know what you want to see Eric do on next week's podcast for losing the bet.
Nothing too great. Nothing. Work laptop.
Yeah, work laptop.
Gotta keep it that line.
Safe place. DFS.
All right.
Well, thanks to our producer Elliot for getting us some info and running the show. Eric, thanks for being here again.
Hey, it was pouring in and out. So
yeah, we got here. It was raining quite a bit to get in here and get it done. And viewers, thanks for tuning in again. You guys are doing great. We love having you around. This is why we do it. So
it's fun.
It's fun.
Let's keep it up.
And we'll see you guys again next week. So we're going to sign off for this week. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks.